do a tour about the mill, the outside of the building, also a little bit about the inside. The group is quite large, so I suggest we split the group in half, about here. First group comes with me inside and the other group follows after. That takes about 5-6 minutes. Make as many pictures as you like. Feel free to move around the mill because the sails are not turning today. There's not enough wind, unfortunately. But move around, make pictures. And by the way, the bus will be waiting for you around the corner here to take you to the Keukenhof. Keukenhof is about 5-6 minutes, very short distance. It's not yet here, the bus, but it will be arriving in about 10-15 minutes. So, but take your time again. And the weather is nice, so you're lucky. Last week it was raining and terrible. Anyway, so you are looking at the building which was established in 1676, so almost 350 years ago. Okay? And when this was built here, there was nothing here but water, mud and shit. There was no roads, there was nothing here, no boats, no cars. Everything was flooded here with water. And here behind the mill was a lake, a huge lake. And also on the other side of the canal there was a big lake called the Haarlemmer Lake. Haarlemmer Meer. Meer means lake. And the Haarlemmer Meer nowadays has an airport. Who arrived by plane? Okay, so you guys landed 3.5 meters below sea level. You landed in an area which was flooded with water 200 years ago. Okay, nowadays it's dry land, it has an airport, and planes are landing on a landing strip, but without these water management systems, because you're looking at a water pump, that's what about it. But without these systems, the planes would be landing in the water and everybody would be swimming there. Okay? The name of the airport is not Amsterdam Airport, but it's Schiphol Airport. Schiphol. Schip means ship. Hol means safe place. So when this was still water and the winter was storming, there were storms coming, ships were taking cover there from the storms. So Schiphol, that explains the name. Okay? Everybody calls it Amsterdam Airport, it's easier to explain, but the original name was Schiphol Airport. Is Schiphol Airport. Schiphol. I admit, Dutch is a funny language. Sorry for that. So, 1676, it's a big, huge water pump. So what it does, when it was built here, because you're standing on a dike right now. So when people were fed up with all the water overflowing all the time, in the villages here, people drowning, people died because of the water. They started building dikes around lakes. And you're standing on a dike right now. It's still below sea level, but it's heightened around the lake, and then they put a huge water pump on top of it to empty the lake, to push the water out -4 meters up out of the dike. Okay? So the -4 meter water is pumped up by a screw pump, which turns around by using the force of the sails turning around. And the sails are turned around by wind, by the power of the wind. It's the same principle as a sailing boat, and I'll explain you a little bit how it works. The water pump, once it starts turning water up, it can move 30,000 liters per minute, 30 cubic meters per minute. It's very powerful. And once the sails start moving around, they can get a speed of about 80 kilometers per hour. It's very, very fast and powerful, and it starts moving the water pump up, pushes the water out, which is behind in the canal. So, when the sails start turning, so today the wind is coming from the northeast, more or less. Yesterday it came from the southwest. So yesterday we were turning the sails around because the wind was driving the sails. If we want to change the sails into the wind, we need to be able to turn the head around. So the head of the mill can turn 360 degrees around. Okay? It runs on little wheels. It weighs 20 tons, 20,000 kilos. But one man or one woman could do it. You can change this. You put the chain on one of the other anchors, which is over there. All around the mill you see these anchors. And then you start turning the wheel and the head starts moving. And you could do it on your own. Power woman, you could do it on your own. Exactly. So it can be done by one person. Think about it, this was designed in 1676. So in my view, that's quite high tech, right? If you think about it, and it was also built with people with their bare hands, with horsepower and no mechanical engineering, nothing. So nowadays, there's a little electronical pump at the back of the mill, which is fully operational 24/7, and it has a limited capacity, but when it's required, the mill is still used as a backup. So when rain is falling a lot, and it was snowing last week, then the mill needs to pump extra water out, because the smaller one can't cope. It's not big enough. Although the good thing is, it doesn't require any manpower, it's an electronical one. So that's nice. It was built there in 1989, so not that long ago. Before 1989, this was the main pump for this area. Okay, so it's like I said, it's a huge, big, powerful water pump driven by sails and wind. Okay, when this was built, and about a century later, we had about 10,000 like these systems in the Netherlands, all over the place, to make sure that water was kept out and people were safe from drowning. So 10,000 were in those days operational. Today we have about 1,000 left, out of which 500 are still operational, and the other 500 are there for romance and pictures and fun. Okay? Some of those 500 are used for making flour, and some are used for cutting wood, but most are used as water pumps, since we have a lot of water in this country. Yes? So first group, come with me inside. Second group will be about 6-7 minutes.
Here, the first group. Let's go in. Let's dig in. Wow.
The thatch coverage it isolates very well. So when it's warm outside, it's cold here and the other way around. So last week it was cold outside, but also cold inside. Because there's no central heating here, nothing. So let's wait a couple of seconds for everybody to move in. So turn around and have a look at the map over there, if you can, because that's a map of our very small country, the Netherlands. And the header of the table there says Nederland zonder duinen en dijken. Netherlands without dunes and dikes. So dunes are the sand hazards protecting us from the sea. Okay? They are natural sand hazards, but we are keeping them strong and high enough to protect us from the sea. Because the sea has tides. Every 6 hours the tide comes up, the tide goes down. But the difference in level is 7 meters. So without those dunes protecting us from the sea, all these blue parts of our country would be flooded. Okay, so Amsterdam is below sea level. Without our dunes protecting us from the sea, everybody in Amsterdam would be swimming. Not nice, but it's the truth. Now the same problem we have with rivers coming in, because Netherlands is like a river delta. So from Germany we have the River Rhine, from Belgium and France we have the Maas, the Meuse, and we have the IJssel flowing into our country. So rivers in wintertime get all the snow from Germany and Switzerland, bringing it into our country. And rivers tend to overflow as well. So we build dikes to protect us from the rivers overflowing. Yeah, well, it's needed because otherwise people die. So it was a struggle for life, and it still is a struggle for life, because it's continuous work to keep the dunes strong and high enough. We work 24/7, 365 days a year, to keep the dunes high enough and the dikes strong enough to protect us from the water. Okay? It's a struggle we've been doing already for more than 1,000 years. And today we have a very sophisticated water management system in place to keep us safe and dry. Although I must say, the last time that some rivers overflowed was in 1995, not that long ago, and then 500,000 people had to leave their homes. So it's still a struggle that keeps on going. Although I must say, the water is not only our enemy, but also our friend. Because we fight the water to keep safe, to stay alive, but at the same time, the water is our friend because our land is very rich, the soil is very rich for agriculture. So one of our biggest export products is agriculture stuff. Everybody knows Dutch cheese, but that's only a small part of what we export. We do a lot of dairy products and cows and pigs. Parma ham is made from Dutch pigs. Nobody believes it, but it's true. That's thanks to European regulations. We bring the pigs there, they get a Parma ham stamp, and they come back into Europe. It's crazy. Anyway, the middle one is the names with all the families that lived here, because families lived here and they had to keep the mill operational. And they were paid by the community, because the people in the villages around here were very happy with the mill because it kept them safe from the water. So the family living here was paid by the community. Family living here, this used to be a living room, very simple. On the other side there was a small open kitchen, and there was on the first floor some sleeping accommodation, but no central heating, well, some electricity nowadays, but in those days, in the old days, no comfort at all. Tough. Only one struggle, food and survive the water. Tough life. Families in those days, by the way, had about 10 or 12 kids. That was not exceptional, because the kids were needed to work on the land to keep them safe from the water, but also to get food. Struggle for life. Now, walk around. The screw pump is over there, which goes 9 meters down to the canal, which is at the back side of the mill. That pumps the water up, and I'll see you at the other side to explain you a little bit about the mechanics of the mill, the engine room.
Ja, kom hier dus schrappen.
Wilhelm, where are you going?
Here, little canal over here, and then it goes under the mill into the canal outside.
Sorry.
That's the way it works.
So this turning with that keeps that turning?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait a second.
Yeah. No, I'm just trying to work it out.
No more questions, don't worry, don't worry. Feel free, feel free. So, when the sails start turning around outside of the mill, there's a horizontal wheel up in the turret of the mill that starts turning horizontally. The video explains it in one of the segments about how it works. It's a huge wheel, it's twice as big as this one, and then the main shaft in the middle is a solid piece of oak wood, 9 meters tall. So think about it, 9 meters solid oak wood is heavy like it's crazy, but people put it in here with their bare hands, some ropes and maybe some horsepower, but it's still freaking amazing. Anyway, so this starts moving horizontally, it turns the wheel vertically, and then the screw pump starts moving the water up and pushes 30,000 liter at full capacity outside through here. The small canal water, you can smell the fresh water, flows out into the canal outside. Now, the pins inside the wheels are worn out a little bit, as you can see. They are replaced every 5 or 6 years, but they are kept smooth and silent and soft by using bee wax and pork fat. Those are the lubricants. It's remarkably silent, so once it starts moving full force, there's a lot of noise coming from the water, but the engine, as I call it, is remarkably silent. It runs very smoothly. And think about it, built 350 years ago. And it's still, most of the pieces, you can see some steel which is put in here. More sustainable, of course. The same applies to the screw pump. It's now made of steel. It was put there in the 1950s. But before those days, it was made of wood. So think about it, wood and water is not a good combination. So every 4 to 5 years, the screw pump, mind you, 9 meters tall, had to be replaced by a wooden piece. A lot of work, and so nowadays it's made of steel. More sustainable, more durable, more easy to handle, and easier to maintain. So, main engine of the mill, if you look at it, it's a very simple principle, but again, 1676, high tech, in my view. The building and all the woodwork, most of it made of oak, is still solid as a rock. And that's because the open kitchen here was not having a chimney up to the turret of the mill, too dangerous for fire, and there's also not a lot of space in the head of the mill. So the smoke was used to protect the wood from wood bugs and woodworms and bugs. So it was simple, but not very healthy. Not very healthy, not good for your lungs. But most of the smoke went up, and you can see the wood in most areas, also on top of the mill, is blackened by the smoke. But they use these simple things to survive. That's it. This used to be a small dining room, you can hardly imagine it. A small kitchen, a small toilet here on top of the water, so everything was flushing into the water. different area, different days. But anyway, those are the main principles of the mill. And again, nowadays nobody lives there anymore. We are trying to renovate it and bring it back in the original state, but it's expensive and it requires people who have certain skills that are not easy to find. And expensive, like I said. Okay? Have a look around, make pictures as many as you like, ask me any question you like, there are no stupid questions. And I'll, and the bus